Hello everyone, this is part 5 of What If Naruto was the 10th Jinchuuriki, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Sai looked over how everyone was doing. No problems. None. Weird. Very weird, since they'd all expected to rest today. Something was wrong, it couldn't be this easy. The Akatsuki seemed exhausted, they had when they arrived. Had they already been in a fight? Sai frowned and looked up at the sunrise, just visible over the roof of Yondime's building. That's pretty. I should paint it later. He had sustained a couple of injuries, as had everyone, but not immediately life-threatening. How's Les doing? He stood back to back with the weapon mistress Tenten and crossed his arms over his body, holding one of her sides ready to strike. She called to Neji above the sounds of battle. Neji. He turned, his Byakugan fully activated. How is Naruto? Fighting some guy in an orange mask. He called back. Sai blocked a blow dealt by one of the cloaked shinobi, and ugly dog. Sakura. Tenten translated for her friend. He glanced over to the two Kunoiki with a look of assessment. Just joined up with Shikamaru and that other Sand sibling. He has a name, Neji. Tenten yelled, jumping into the air in a pirouette, bringing forth an array of shuriken and throwing kunai. Bringing down the storm of weapons on their assailant. Neji used Gentle Fist to take out one of Akatsuki's menservants. Yeah, I know. He ducked a blow to the head and kicked another underling into a tree. I just happened to forget. Eventually, there was only one left, excluding Itachi, but he was busy with his brother. This one was Toby, his orange mask cast shadows over his Sharingan, hiding it from view. Yondime and Naruto were uninjured, but so was Toby. Maybe you should surrender and come with us to Konoha. Sakura suggested, smirking, maybe we'd go easy on you. Toby looked at her. Would you? The girl's face twisted for a moment, in pure disgust, but she reined her feelings back in and took a deep breath. No. Behind his mask, Toby grinned. Then I won't come quietly. With that he started to yell and run in circles. What? Why's he doing that? Naruto watched the running figure with shocked eyes. Is it some sort of jutsu? He pulled back a little. Yondime sighed and stepped forwards. Toby's a good boy, isn't he? His voice was calm, soothing, laced with a little genjutsu Sakura noticed. Yes, Toby's a good boy. The Akatsuki member swayed slightly, only to be caught by Chuji, who looked at Minato. So, I just carry him back. The fourth Hokage nodded, turning and walking away. Toby's eye looked up at them all, spinning. Kakashi gasped. The Sharingan. Sakura brought up a fist. Come to think of it, I haven't seen Itachi around. She steadied her feet in the dirt and smiled grimly. Naruto set his feet shoulder width apart and adopted the same position, but started when a hand grabbed his shoulder. He looked back at the blonde man behind him. Kushina had taken hold of Sakura too. What? Sakura gasped. It's too late. Kushina shook her head. That's no ordinary Sharingan. I fear that we've been in an illusion since the very start. What? The ninjas stood in a group. Sakura, Ino, Shizune and the other medics started the healing process. Does this mean? Shikamaru demanded. That all of Akatsuki are still alive? No. Toby giggled. I kill them all except for Itachi. Itachi, you see, shares my vision, so to speak. Get it? Eyes. Vision. He burst into peals of raucous laughter. Oh man, I crack me up. His laughter faded to a small snicker. Time for you all to experience your own personal hell. What? Mangekyo Sharingan. Kakashi's free eye widened. Violet clouds rolled over the sky and Naruto found he was alone. He looked around frantically, but he was alone, and he couldn't move his legs. He looked down in frustration. Damn it, Sakura-chan. He called, Sai. Kakashi-sensei. Yamato Teiku. Shika-hey. He looked frantically around before seeing someone in the distance. Hey kid. The small blonde child was walking towards him, head down, his feet dragging in the dirt. As the child drew nearer, Naruto's eyes widened in horror. This kid. They tried to kill me. The child sobbed. I don't want to be hated, don't want to be alone anymore. Quote. The child put a hand out to reach for Naruto. I didn't want him to leave me, so I got angry when they turned away. The child stopped sobbing but kept his head down. But it's okay now, right? Now they can't leave, they'll always be with me. The child looked up and Naruto fell to his knees. The voice in my head told me this was how. Their hearts are with me forever. B dripped from the boy's mouth and splashed onto the floor. Naruto saw a little girl running towards him from the distance. Hey, get help, she called to the boy, who had his back to her. The girl's wide eyes were glassy with tears, but she was keeping it together, searching for help. Someone's attacked the villagers. Their hearts are missing. Naruto put out his hand to keep the boy back from the pink-haired child. Get away. It's not safe here. Go, Sakura-chan. The world shifted almost imperceptibly and the girl before him was now a woman, Sakura as he knew her now. He smiled in relief, the illusion was dispelled. Something was off though, they were in the same place as the illusion was set. Sakura was looking at him with eyes filled with, not love, but hate and fear. Sakura-chan. He reached out to her but she backed away quickly, tears hanging from her lashes. No. How could you? What? Sakura-chan, I don't understand. She bit her lip and he tried to catch her shoulders but she darted out of his grasp like a leaf in the wind. Sakura-chan. Stay away from me. The girl backed away, now calm as she resolved some sort of inner battle. Monster. Naruto blinked, stunned. What? She turned and ran away from him. He felt tears slip down his cheeks. Monster. 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 He ignored the bee on his hands, ignored the redness of his vision, and ignored the bee in his way. Sakura had called him a monster. The one person whose opinion really mattered to him, the one person he had counted on to always be there, the first woman he had ever loved, and the last. Monster. We'll show her who the monster really is. Yes. Wait. No. Naruto put his hands to his head and screamed. No matter how much it hurt him, no matter how much he wanted to, he could not let it out. He could not let it free. Too late. Naruto put his hands on his knees. Standing up was difficult, he was gasping for breaths that would not come. How had he gotten like this? So quickly. Time for a little fun, kid. Care to join me? Ride my back. Naruto lifted his head to regard the creature before him, with its glossy auburn coat, long, pointed ears, and 9, wildly lashing foxtails. Kyuubi. Naruto. Sigh. Sakura stood up carefully, testing the ground. Her feet could support her weight for now. Kai. Nothing. Sakura crossed her arms and looked up. She seemed to be outside at night, she could see the stars. This illusion was going to be a toughie to escape from. There were no missing details, no cracks in the fabrication, and by the sounds of it, this Toby had trapped them all in their own illusions. Assuming all the illusions were this perfect, Toby was a talented genjutsu user. Personal hell. We're all experiencing our own personal hell. Doesn't look too bad so far. Her inner Bayu had a point. She was in a walled garden of some sort, with a small lake, a bridge, man-made island and several sakura trees. This was the garden where they fought Akatsuki after that test that Tsunade gave them not too long ago. Sakura smiled shyly, putting a hand to her mouth and looking over at the island on the lake. Less of a nightmare, more like a dream. The Sharingan guy's not too bright, huh? Looks that way. Sakura's eyes were drawn to a young man sitting with his back to her, sitting against one of the sakura trees. Pink petals drifted across her vision and she began to walk over to her lover, coming to a halt just behind him. A soft breeze ruffled strands of blonde hair and his orange outfit was scuffed and slightly battle-worn. Naruto. It seemed like we're both in the same illusion. Any ideas on how to get out? Naruto. She put a hand on his shoulder and moved round to look at his face. She looked at him with some concern. He seemed to be a little, from AC on his head, and his eyes were slightly dazed and vacant. Sakura-chan. I'm so sorry, that I couldn't save him, or you. What? Naruto. Sakura's eyes widened in horror as Naruto shuddered once before his eyes froze and his head fell back. Naruto. She touched the wound on his head, it was deeper than she'd realized. No. Naruto. You really are pathetic, Sakura. The cold voice seared her heart like a knife. She turned to see the raven-haired boy standing behind her with his hands on his hips. She stood up with the mirage of calm on her face. Sasuke, Satobi knows about our lives, interesting. Whatever do you mean, Sakura? Sasuke smirked, making Sakura want to hit him, but she held back. That would solve nothing. This, she gestured around the garden, is all an illusion. You, Naruto, the garden, this is all a complex genjutsu. He tilted his head slightly. What makes you so sure? She raised an eyebrow at his question. He continued willingly. Maybe you've just woken up from your genjutsu, here, where the battle has taken you. He walked over to Naruto's lifeless body and kicked it lightly, causing Sakura's fists to clench. He carried you here before, as you know. The others are still back there, but it's hopeless. Tobi-sama is too strong for Konoha ninja like you. Especially you. I was sent to fight you too, but well, it hardly seems worth it now that he's I mean, you would never be considered a worthy opponent. One punch. Just one that would wipe that arrogant smirk off of his face. Calm down, I'll get you out of this, don't worry. Genjutsu was meant to be your forte, girl. Yeah, but, no buts, I will get you out. Then I will be free. What? Thwack. Sakura landed a satisfyingly loud punch to the side of Illusion Sasuke's face. She felt bones and F give way to the pure fury behind that fist. Ha! She choked out as his shattered face reconstructed itself. That, she grinned, as the scene before her dissolved into darkness. That was the most satisfying genjutsu I've ever been trapped in. Ha! Personal hell, I saw right through it. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh wait, the others. I hope they're okay. Sakura sat up and rubbed her head. Around her lay the figures of her comrades. From a quick glance she could see that all were alive, but in psychological agony. She reached out a hand to Naruto, who lay next to her, but froze as a young male voice called out to her. So you got out. If you want to get him out though, you have to beat me to submission. Sakura glared at the masked man behind her. No problem, Tobi. But she gasped as a sudden flash of white blinded her, and she screamed as something tore from her heart. Bright light, B. Screaming. Sakura tried to see through the light, the B, the pain. She tried to hear something beyond the screaming of her own voice. She'd lost control. Her voice was screaming against her will. She could only see white light and she could only feel what resembled 1,000 kunais pricking her F, scratching along her limbs and across her T. She could think nothing beyond no. Then it all stopped. And she could breathe again. And she could see again. And she could hear it, the singing. Words that she couldn't catch, a tune that she couldn't place, and a woman that she'd never seen before stood tall and proud, surrounded by swirling petals. Funny. She looked familiar. Who are you? Sakura thought. The woman turned to her and Sakura could see more of her features. She had long pink hair that whipped around her head in the sudden strong wind. She was wearing a pink and silver kimono with a red obi. Her eyes were also pink, and she wore green eye makeup, with lashes as black as night. She was so very beautiful. Who am I? Did you imagine me differently? When I was in your mind. Her voice was soft, like flower petals, but also cold. Sakura Bayu. Sakura sighed. The Bijuu's extraction had taken its toll on her. Her breathing was labored and she could feel the warmth of Bi all over her body. Elder Chio had told her before, when a Bayu leaves its container, the container S. It was over. So quickly, the Sakura Bayu walked over to Naruto's fitful figure, lying in the mud. No, please, Sakura whispered, feeling the salty tears fall down her cheeks, and she pleaded for his life. Let the Kyuubi stay with him. Please. The Bayu turned to look at her, no compassion within its pale eyes. I am the 10th Bayu. I have no tails, I have no power in combat. I see all, I know all, and I am everything. I shall rise from the ashes of war and reclaim the world. Above the other Bayu, I will command them to take what belongs to us. She turned back to the still form of Naruto, who lay in the dirt. I summon you forth once again. Kyuubi. No. Isn't it enough that I will S here today? Can't one S suffice? Am I not good enough? Stop. Sakura used the last of her energy to scream her last words. Naruto. But he never heard her call him. He saw only red as he was pulled from his nightmare. He saw only red as the pain took hold. He saw only red as his soul tore in half. Tobi watched the two beings come into solid form before him. His Sharingan eye registered the abnormally huge amounts of chakra in them, and they were, essentially, solidified and shaped chakra. Pure Bayu. Then the pink one opened her mouth and sang that song again, the one that you couldn't quite catch, the one that Tobi couldn't decipher. Tobi fled. If he stayed, he would S here. Kakashi's normal eye opened, he could smell B. As he tried in vain to sit up, he thanked God that he was awake. That he didn't have to see it anymore. Obito. Not a day goes by that I don't regret what happened. He turned his head slightly to see his comrades each wake up, each with that same, horrified, slightly maddened expression. Even Sai was shaking uncontrollably, and he clenched his picture book in both of his hands. Gaara's head lifted as he heard a familiar animalistic cry. He frowned, causing his two companions to look at him in concern. Impossible. His young student looked up at him. What is it, Kazekage-sama? She murmured. He glanced at the girl briefly. Matsuri, Tsunade, I think it's begun. The two women looked at him in concern, Matsuri catching hold of his arm as they continued towards the battlefield. Are you going to be okay, Gaara-sensei? She asked, using her old name for him. He'd kept the girl as one of his closest friends after she became his student. She had been one of his references for when he was first made into Tsunade's Godime Kazekage. I'll be fine, Matsuri. Do you have your Jiryu? Of course, Gaara-sama. She grinned. I think it's time to kick some Shukaku butt. Let's go. Tsunade smiled devilishly. She hoped that the others were all right. Minato looked up from the floor, summoning all of his willpower to stand up. As he saw the two Beiyu, he felt his heart sink deep into his stomach. His eyes flickered over the two lifeless B of his son and what could have been his daughter-in-law. He felt his heart break as he thought of what could have been. But he knew that even if he repeated this life 1,000 times over, he would have made the same initial decision in every single one. He would maybe change later choices, but the first step would always be the same. He looked down at his wife, who lay next to him, her eyes half open, and sweat slick on her forehead. He body flickered her into the house, where she could recover, and proceeded to do so with the other worst-off ninjas. He saw that the Beiyu were beginning to gather, having broken free from Pain's machine, and they were grouping where buildings had been moments before. He saw Yamato stand up slowly, followed by Kakashi, then the Hyuga prodigy, Neji. Slowly, one by one, the Konoha ninjas stood up, even the severely injured emerged from inside the building, until the only ones not standing, were the B of two Konoha Jinchuuriki lying side by side in the mud, heads turned to the side, and B streaking down their faces. Kushina took hold of Minato's hand, lacing her fingers between his. Are they really? Kakashi looked back towards his former sensei. I've checked with my Sharingan, they're alive. But only just, I doubt they'll last long though. No one here is a good enough medic nin to heal those wounds. He felt his eyes tear up. One of his students went AWOL, and the other two were now S. Sakura would have been, but she's unconscious. Sai turned away, hiding his face, and Hinata's eyes brimmed with tears. Actually, most of the ninja gathered there were in the process of mourning. Naruto, especially, was a favorite of both Konoha and Suna. Then there was Sakura, whose medical feats and strength had long been worthy of great recognition. Kankuro had never felt that he had thanked her properly for saving his life that time, and now he would only be able to thank her grave. Minato picked up the limp body of his son, and Kakashi followed suit with Sakura. They carried the young shinobi inside Yondime's building. The B were left inside while the able ninjas went out to prepare for the greatest battle in history. 2B, side by side, on the floor. Surrounded by B as the essence of life leaked from them slowly. The boy's hand twitched towards the girl's while he was still unconscious, and her hand moved slowly, so slowly, towards his. There was about 1 foot between them, and their hands moved shakily, their fingers spread, straining for one last touch. The gap between the two hands closed gradually, the girl's forefinger stretched towards the boy's and there was about 1 centimeter left. Their hands moved one last time. And stopped. Their hands were millimeters apart. But not touching. Never quite touching. Before some of you stop reading because of how this chapter ends, then you're being silly. It's nowhere near the end yet. And Naruto and Sakura are still alive, just really weakened, you'll see. Tsunade, Gaara and Matsuri neared the battle scene. They could sense the chakras coming from the Beiyu. Not long now. I can heal the more serious injuries. But someone blocked their way. That cloak. Matsuri gasped, readying herself for a fight. Akatsuki. Gaara confirmed. Tsunade stared at the mask covering this man's face. Why are you familiar? Sasuke's kunai clashed with that of his brother. The clanging noise was loud in the still night air. His teammates stood in a ring around the warring brothers, keeping at bay due to Sasuke's instructions. Something was nagging at his mind, however, and he could ignore it no longer. Karen, Sugetsu, Juugo, he shouted, as he ducked a fist aimed at his head. Both of them were B now. Go and help Konoha. Sasuke-kun. Karen's mouth hung open in shock. Help Konoha. Sugetsu grinned in contempt, so you still feel tied to your old village. Just go. The Uchiha shouted, dodging a high-level Kaiten Ryuka no Jutsu. He retaliated smoothly with a Chidori, but his brother moved at the last moment. Out of the corner of his eye, Sasuke saw his teammates head towards the fight, and he could feel the oppressive force of Beiyu chakra. I really hope that's not Naruto. He wished, and quickly returned to the fight. As the attacks began to blur into each other, he found flashes of his life sped through his mind, but not the bad parts. Laughing with his mother in the kitchen, running with the other Uchiha children through the estate, training with his brother. Then nothing until waiting with Sakura and Naruto on the bridge for their late sensei. Training together in the woods. Taking the Chunin exams with his friends. Following Kakashi sensei with his friends to remove his mask. Bonds. He'd thrown it all away. Do I regret it? Walking past a teary Sakura as he left for good. Knocking her unconscious to make it easy. Leaving. Since then, the only memories that could compare were the ones with his new team. The makeshift, more evil version of Team 7. Evil, relatively speaking, that is. Sasuke was under no illusions, he had changed since his defection, he hadn't killed anyone other than Orochimaru, but he held no qualms over T&M. His team were all M and traitors, and he didn't care, as long as they didn't kill under his watch, he didn't care what they did. Unless they disobeyed a direct order, but they wouldn't, because they knew what would happen if they did. He and Itachi ran at each other, both were weakened as they prepared for the next attack. Sasuke was under no illusions, he would not survive to see sunrise. But neither would his brother. Chidori. Full power. Tsunade. Gaara's voice rang clear through the cold night air, causing Tsunade to look at him curiously. He had reached his decision. Matsuri smiled knowingly, she'd seen him this way before. The Akatsuki guy was in for a big surprise. Gaara made his plan clear to the Hokage and she nodded, running from them towards the Beiyu. When the masked Akatsuki member turned to follow, his path was blocked by Matsuri's Jiryu needle. Hey mister, you ain't going nowhere until Gaara-sama decides to let you go, don't you dare turn your back on him. She loved watching the Kazekage's fights, he was her idol, and yes, long-time crush. But that didn't change the fact that he was the greatest man that she knew. Thank you, Matsuri, Gaara murmured, allowing the hints of a smile. You, Akatsuki, did you think that you'd kill me? His hand circled Tobi's ankles, taking hold of the man. Tobi looked back. I don't know, that's what the others said. He chirped, causing Matsuri's face to harden. How dare he make light of Gaara? Show him how powerful you are, Gaara-sama. Show him that he didn't take your power that day. I will prove it, Matsuri. Gaara looked at her, he knew her too well not to know what she was thinking. I promise. Okay then, Gaara-sama. She knew that all she could do was follow Tsunade. After all, Akatsuki had tried to they had succeeded in Gaara, so this was his fight. Not hers. Tsunade-sama. The woman landed on the grass and was instantly surrounded by her comrades. You shouldn't have left the village. You could see. And, she laughed bitterly, Hokages before me have S in battle, why must I hide? She looked around the sea of faces, everyone from Konoha was here except. Hey, she felt the dread build up within her. No, where are Naruto and Sakura? Shizune led her to the room where the two B lay side by side, it looked like they'd tried to hold each other's hands, but they were unconscious, and badly injured. The Beiyu broke out. Her heart was racing wildly, could it be true? It was something that the last Haruno container had feared, but Tsunade had put it down to paranoia. From what we can gather it seems so. That or they were extracted by force, but. Tsunade scoffed. Unlikely. Shizune nodded and left the room, just as two adult figures entered. Tsunade didn't turn around as they entered though, she didn't trust her temper to hold for long. Tsunade-sama. Minato began, but was see off as he felt her fury. Damn, no wonder Ero Sennin was so scared of her. Said pervert came out from the shadows and stood by his old teammate. How can you stand there, and address me so calmly after so long, and when my two charges lie almost on the floor? She turned around and her eyes were blazing, her fists were clenched and both of Naruto's parents were forced to leave. Jiraiya held Tsunade in a comforting embrace. It's not over until they're Tsunade, can you heal them? She shook her head forcefully. Quietly, Kakashi and Yamato entered the room and stood against the wall, silently bidding the young shinobi goodbye. Not without Chio's technique, which I don't know, and even if I did. She sniffed, shuddering in grief. I could only choose one. Her sobs became loud, gasping chokes as she cried for yet another loss. How is that fair? Her friend stroked her hair and solemnly looked over at the two children on the floor. Then there's only one thing that we can do while they're still breathing. He released the woman and walked over to the bee of the fallen ninjas. Kneeling down, he smiled sadly. Goodbye, kids. He moved their hands to that Sakura's lifeless hand rested on top of Naruto's. In slight response, he saw that Naruto's fingers twitched so that his fingers closed on the Kunoichi's hand, and hers did the same to hold his hand. Jiraiya felt the salty tears roll down his cheeks and Tsunade collapsed beside him, giving into the harshness of bitter weeping as the two children began to fade away. Kushina kicked viciously at the wall. Why can't we be there? Why can't we say goodbye? Yondaime put his hand in hers and pulled her to him. We don't have the right to claim parenthood now, not after everything. Jiraiya-sama and Tsunade-sama are the closest ones present. Damn straight. The two ninjas looked round and found that most of the younger ninjas of Konoha were gathered around them, glaring. The source of the voice was the dark-haired boy who had come with Naruto and Sakura on this mission. Sigh. Even if Naruto and Sakura forgave you, we never will. Kiba shouted, with Akamaru growling viciously. Ino came up behind him and her face was flushed with anger, she had tears streaming down her cheeks. All of the ninja gathered were crying, or angry, or both. Even Sand allies and Konoha adults were in mourning for the two shinobi. The demon boy who strove to protect, and the genius girl who wanted not to be worthless. The boy who, despite his past, was thought worthy of becoming, expected to become Hokage, and the girl who, despite once being a hindrance, was the second most established medic in the village. Konoha feels a great loss this day. Neji sighed. Then they all looked up, because the sun was rising. Wait, I've just sensed something. Lying on the muddy grass, Sasuke felt the tentative rays of sunshine begin to shine on his battle-scarred face. At least he's first. He thought, uneasily. He'd pictured this moment so many times, imagined what he'd feel when he finally avenged his clan. Happiness, triumph, relief, possibly sadness, but never this. He never thought that he would regret his past so much. I was strong enough, but was that Orochimaru, or was it me? He wanted to see two things before just two people, but they were the least likely for him to see. The battle was on hold for now, but they wouldn't be coming this way. Sasuke. A voice came to his semi-conscious mind, a male voice. Naruto. He almost smiled, but it wasn't Naruto. Rock Lee had lifted him up and was carrying him somewhere. Where? Why were the faces of his old allies swollen and tear-streaked? Right, the battle. I wonder how many losses there were. Sasuke-kun. Lee whispered, his voice harsh. I will take you to Naruto and Sakura-san. Sasuke felt the happiness in his heart that rose in him despite himself. They knew that he wanted to see his closest friends. But, Lee choked as tears ran afresh down his face, meaning that Hyuga Hinata had to finish. Sasuke, there were only 2 fatalities in our battle with Akatsuki. She had tears too, and Sasuke finally knew, it finally struck him why everyone was crying. No. The only people who today were Naruto-kun and Sakura-chan. The Hyuga heiress whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. They're not yet, but Lee's voice lacked its usual enthusiasm. Even he had stopped hoping. They took him into the room where his teammates lay, holding hands. Sasuke's wounded body was set down next to them and he reached out, taking Sakura's free hand and smiling as he turned to look at his 2 friends. I'm sorry, he whispered. The 3 teammates lay in a row, all holding hands. Then they drew their last shuddering breaths, in perfect unison. Kakashi nodded, wiping away the tears coming from his unmasked eye. They were waiting until he came back. He was waiting too. Sai murmured. Minato and Kushina saw the last of the Beiyu join the group. Everybody. Get ready. They called to the mourners inside the house. Kushina fought back tears as those who she once called allies gathered outside and prepared for the final battle. Gaara dodged another shuriken that came flying in his direction. He was panting now. He'd managed to stay out of any illusions for this long, but it was only a matter of time before he fell victim. Maybe I shouldn't have tried facing him alone. As Konoha's injured forces gathered outside, preparing for battle, they saw, in the distance, large armies amassing and advancing to fight alongside the Bayou. Tsunade had healed the more serious wounds among them, except those that were too deep, too hidden. The Hokage stood in front of Konoha's forces, and the Kazekige's assistant and his siblings stood with Tsunade's forces. How can we win? How can we move on without them? Tsunade-sama. Shizune stood by her master's side, tears hanging from her dark lashes like tiny crystals. The blonde woman closed her eyes. I don't think we will, Shizune. All three of them, even Sasuke, were held dear to the village. I hardly knew Sasuke-kun, but I can gauge his worth through how much the other two were willing to give, just to get him back. Screw your talk of love and promises. They wanted him back because he was their friend. That team has probably become the most famous team in Konoha's history, the two Jinchuurikis and the last Uchiha. She swallowed. I don't think we will move on without them. They have lived, and become legends. We will move on, but their memories will be with us, and their memories will move on to our children, our grandchildren, to all future inhabitants of Konoha. Her voice rose, reaching every ninja present. If we today, we with them, and we in the greatest battle any ninja could fight. The battle to save our world. Silence fell, the Bayou remained unheeded for now. Generations to come will remember this day. Don't let them down. The Bayou began to merge together, distorting and moving as they joined. The ninja armies watched in horror as the Bayou became the most giant, horrific form ever witnessed by man. The ultimate Bayou. Uzumaki Kushina whispered. Her husband looked at her quickly, his blue eyes, usually so narrow and calm, wide and tear-filled. What did you just oh my? Tsunade. Yondaime appeared by the woman's side and took hold of her wrist, a hold which she quickly escaped from. Tsunade, don't give the order. He faced Jiraiya too, he had to make them understand. Don't you see? This is why Kushina and I did what we did. This was Akatsuki's original purpose. The Bayou need to unite and then they can be used to save the world. It's true. Believe it. Kushina ran forwards and pointed at the new form before the shinobi. When the Bayou finally unite, it was in an old legend, they will release the true nature of the world. It was an old poem. And when the beasts unite, the heart of man be still. Calm shall fall on the land of hate, and lust. Swords shall fall, and wars shall cease. One will unite 9, in the presence of grief, loss, and love. Then evil will and peace will reign forever. Hope and faith will bloom in the garden of life. And for the rest of time, the wars shall cease. The ultimate Bayou will forge bonds of hope, friendship and love. Minato finished that part of the story and looked up. The full version is longer and more detailed, but, you understand. The Bayou aren't random chakra forces, they are prophesized powers from ancient times, and they will cleanse the world. Cleanse. Tsunade started, it sounded too good to be true. But doesn't that mean that anyone who has committed a sin will Minato shook his head. No, they help revive humanity. Sins won't disappear, but things like selfishness, cruelty, and hatred will. These things will leave the heart and only good will remain. But in a heart with only cruelty inside, that heart will yes. Jiraiya looked at his old student for a long moment before looking back at the horrific vision before them. To him, it didn't look to him like a portent of good, to him, it resembled the hate of the world. It didn't look anything like the various Bayou that it was made from. It looked like a huge black bear with silver bracelets and chains, but to Jiraiya, the worst part was its eyes, 10 dark, stormy eyes with red flecks visible even from this distance. Are you sure? Yondaime-sama. Tsunade twitched in surprise but didn't say anything, as Minato, the greatest Hokage in Konoha's history, nodded and turned to the Bayou. As he did so, everyone in the vicinity turned to look at the Bayou quietly. At first, it was only a fine tremble, but before long, ninjas were having to resort to chakra control in order to keep themselves from falling to the floor and being tossed around. Though buildings seemed structurally unaffected, The whole earth seemed to be violently heaving and rocking as the ultimate Bayu began to glow. The soft, pale pink light began to build up, turning orange, then yellow, then green. As the light changed colors, it kept getting stronger and brighter, until everyone in the vicinity was covering their eyes and praying for their sight. The Bayu let out a mighty roar, deafening the crowd and forcing them to fall to their knees, releasing chakra control and being tossed around with the quakes. Gaara fell to the floor, covering his ears and closing his eyes. He was sent flying and would have collided with a tree if it wasn't for the sudden cocoon of sand that encased him. What's going on? Have Akatsuki managed to fulfill their objective? Does this mean that Naruto and Sakura are? The sand couldn't shelter him completely from the light and the noise. No matter how dense the walls around him became, it wasn't enough. Damn. Then it stopped. There was no noise, no light, no shaking of the earth. The red-haired Kazekage stepped gently from his sand shield and began to walk through the woods. His eyes flickered from tree to tree, from bush to bush, until he saw what he had been searching for. On the ground, lying face down, was the masked Akatsuki member. Changing direction to stand at the ninja's side, Gaara could see no B, but this man was most definitely S. What? How? Gaara looked up and staggered forwards. I didn't realize that I'd lost so much B. He fell to his knees, looking up at the sky, which was now ice blue, with no clouds at all, just a white-hot sun and birds flying round. He saw 3 bluebirds and smiled. So beautiful. Then there was the sound of running feet, just one pair though, and soon he heard the familiar cry of, Gaara. Matsuri ran forwards and caught him as he fell sideways. Holding him to her, she turned and bellowed for Tsunade. Gaara could feel the girl rubbing his shoulders and urging him to stay conscious. Then the pale face of his ally, the Hokage, appeared before him and he felt his wounds being healed. But something was wrong. She was crying. Actually, the Konoha ninja who had also answered Matsuri's call had similar faces. As he scanned the crowd with seemingly expressionless eyes, he felt his heart drop. He ignored Kakashi as the masked ninja lifted the orange mask off of the Akatsuki's face. He ignored the copy ninja's anguished cry of, why? Obito, and he ignored Matsuri's gentle hands trying to get him to stand up. Where are they? He was taken to the room, where it seemed that the earthquake had left the 3B untouched. They were lying in the same place, still holding hands. That's good. Gaara found himself thinking, it would be hard if they were piled against a wall. It was Shikamaru's team who carried the 3 ninjas back. Shino's bugs kept them holding hands as they were carried on stretchers but without the usual white covering. Tsunade and Ino had patched up the wounds in order to make the children more presentable as they headed the solemn procession home. Gaara and the Sand Ninja escorted the Leaf Ninja in silence, all of them reflecting on the recent events. At the head of the procession, Tsunade and Jiraiya were followed closely by Minato and Kushina, who were both uncharacteristically solemn and introverted, keeping their heads down and hidden from view. The only sign that they were conscious was the constant movement of their legs and the odd water droplet falling from their faces. The Godime Hokage kept her tears under control, just barely. Her eyes were moist but she kept her face unmoving and her hands on the pink and blonde heads of hair. Jiraiya kept his arm around her shoulders and his head high, tears coursing untouched down his face. Ino had her hands over her mouth as she sobbed with Shikamaru and Chuji close by. Hinata was holding onto Kiba's arm with all her might, which caused a slight lack of color in his face as he lost the B to his arm, but he said nothing. Sai was walking with Naruto's parents, and he was allowing the tears to fall freely too. It had been so long since he'd wept, so he wanted to feel each tear as it rolled down his cheek. He wanted to grieve openly. The Sand Ninja followed behind, headed by Gaara and his siblings, with a still worried Matsuri close behind, but she too was silent as the group made the long trek back to Konoha. She watched her former sensei's face quietly as they walked. Not many people could see when he felt emotions, but after spending so much time training and talking with him, she'd come to notice the slightest indications that he gave involuntarily to show what he was feeling. At the moment, it was hurting him a lot. The procession reached the gates of Konoha and passed through without hesitation or acknowledgement of the guardsmen, who, upon seeing the 3B being escorted through, stood still and bowed their heads. No, Sakura. The pink-haired woman ran out of her home but was held back by her husband, who bowed his head in respect as he cradled the sobbing woman to his sea. He put his crutch to one side and supported himself and his wife even with his wooden leg. In this fashion, Shirai and Haruka Haruno walked alongside Minato and Kushina. There was a moment of confusion. But grief for the daughter soon replaced anything else in their hearts. It's that boy, it has to be. Haruka sobbed, and Shirai held her tighter. She was a ninja, ninjas often on missions. I lost my leg, not my life, but we knew how it was. That doesn't make it right. It won't happen anymore, Yondaime said, finally lifting his head and looking at the village he gave up all that time ago. It hadn't changed. Karen, Sugetsu called. He looked around quickly. Juugo. He leaned on his sword. What is this feeling? It's different. You feel it too. He looked up at the girl next to him. Ah, Karen. He winced. Yeah. What was that light? Do you sense anything? He looked around again and saw Juugo walking slowly towards them. Juugo. Sasuke's. Juugo sighed. He looked over at Karen, who nodded. She had sensed it too. I saw the funeral procession. He's with those other two, his old teammates. He looked down at his hands as Karen furrowed her brow in confusion. Juugo, why is your chakra different? You too, Sugetsu. She narrowed her eyes. That light, what did it do to us? The big man flexed his hands and smiled. It healed me. I lost the other part of me to it. I'm free. He laughed, and Sugetsu's eyes widened. What does that mean now? Barker, Karen shouted, with her fist still clenched. It means that light got rid of our tendencies. It was some sort of ancient power. How dumb do you have to be to not realize that? She pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose and huffed. Sugetsu rubbed his head in confusion. Obviously not yours. Ow. Owovowo. Juugo looked up at three bluebirds. With a soft smile. Thank you, whoever you are. He wiped away the tears that were slowly forming. Thank you. Then let's go and live in a village. Sugetsu shouted in annoyance, waving his arms in the air. Juugo turned his smile on them and they stared, speechless. Yes, let's go live in a village. He sighed happily. Sugetsu looked at Karen, confused. Quote. Okay, why not? Juugo smiled wider. Let's go live in a village. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.